Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here as we preview every single SEC game in Week 0 and Week 1. Tonight, we come to Texas A&M and Sam Houston State. Jimbo Fisher, 34-14. Probably no school in the country made more headlines in the offseason than the Aggies for good, bad, or indifferent. Sam Houston State, not a pushover on the FCS level. Preseason ranked number 4 by the coaches. Casey Keeler is 80-23 in 8 seasons there. 11-1 last year, less experience this year. This should be a game that A&M wins. I'm not going to say an absolute walkover because Sam Houston, I think, usually has got enough talent to put up a fight for a while. But I think Aggie fans are going to be just thrilled to get a look at a new team that includes, who knows, maybe the best recruiting class of all time for anybody.
Yeah, great group of talent here for A&M, and that will be the main focus here coming this season. Like you said, I think Texas A&M fans just want to let's just get this thing started now, like August, early August. Let's get this thing going because they do feel like they can have a special season. And when you look at all the talent that's there, the recruiting class, and I add all that together, yeah, it makes sense why they believe they could have a pretty special season. And Texas A&M, you feel like you got a chance to maybe knock off Alabama at the top. But it's the same situation where Alabama feels like they have maybe their best team they've had there under Saban. So it's kind of those questions. And as we know, go ahead and circle that game. They're going to be playing whatever the date is. We'll find it here, but that's your game of the year in college football as of right now, as things stand. So. Yeah, this should be an interesting one. Like you said, I want to give credit to Sam Houston State because if anyone comes in here thinking that this is just one of those teams you come out and take your check and go home. I don't think that's going to be the case with Sam Houston State. You look at what they've accomplished there. Casey Keeler, 80-23, 8 seasons. What is it? I think they were 11-0 last year, wasn't it? Until they
11
lost
and
in the
1. Yeah.
well, they lost. I think they were 11-0. Then they lost in the playoff. I don't remember what exact round that was. I'll have to look that up. But I think they're kind of a team that I'm not going to say in transition because they've proven that they're kind of never in transition seemingly, but may have a little less experience this season. So that may be something that factors into this game as we break it down.
Well, A&M's certainly going to be fun to watch on offense. The Knowns, Devin A-Chain back. He is one of the SEC's, really one of the country's more explosive and versatile players. The offensive line lost a big-time player to the NFL, but is, I think, expected to be better. Tons of potential at receiver, quarterback. I mean, who knows what that's going to be? Is it going to be Max Johnson? Is it going to be Haynes King? Will it be a freshman? Lots of mystery, but lots of talent on that side of the ball. The Bearcats lose some key players, a couple defensive backs, some guys up front. Look, we're not saying that this is going to be an even match on that side of the trenches. We are trying to give respect and do our diligence to Sam Houston State. But the Aggies sure have a lot of talent, just a lot of mystery for week 1. And again, sometimes when you're breaking in new guys, there's nervousness, there's penalties, there's all sorts of stuff. But it'll be very fascinating to get our first glimpse of the Aggie offense in this game.
Yeah, it's as we said, we're recording this in early August. We don't know who the starting quarterback's going to be yet, and that's obviously the biggest question that surrounds any team going into the season and kind of figuring that out. We'll know heading into the game, but like you mentioned, I mean, you look at you got a really talented running back group even without someone like Isaiah Spiller, who's as we know off to the NFL, and you've still got a lot of talented running backs there. That they can choose from. You got a wide receiver group that could break out depending on, how the quarterback situation plays out. And yeah, I just feel like this is one where should be a situation where you can kind of maybe flex your muscles a little bit if you're, depending on, like we said, how things play out in a couple of those scenarios. But I think there's the opportunity to certainly score points here for sure. And I just think it's on the other side. It's Sam Houston State just having to replace some production up front, especially. I think, as we always say, that's if you're going to win a game in these kind of scenarios, you feel like you have to be able to kind of wreak havoc defensively. That's always something that helps. But and look, maybe they do. Maybe A&M's offense isn't come out on all cylinders right away. But I just feel like there's so much talent there for A&M on the offensive side that they'll probably have it figured out. Even if it's not all the way figured out yet, but they'll be able to do some things in this game, you would think.
Okay, big losses for Sam Houston. Quarterback who led him to a national title is gone. leading receiver is gone. A&M on the other side, really good secondary. Some names we know, of course, lost some good players to the NFL, in particular up front, but A&M signed a monster haul everywhere. I mean, 18 top 100 recruits, but I think 4 of those guys on the defensive line. Some starters, or really one starter back at linebacker, but some experience there. A&M's been pretty good at special teams too. I would think this is a situation where the Aggies would have a pretty decided advantage on that side of the ball.
Yeah, this is one of those games where, like, if you're trying to predict, like, will the defense score? I feel like this is one where you kind of look at A&M and you're like, they're probably going to find a way to score in this game.
Yeah.
And that will probably be the case for not just Sam Houston State. That'll probably be the case for a lot of games this season because they will have one of the best secondaries in the country. I think Phil Steele had them rated at number 2 in terms of defensive backs nationally. So the second best defensive back group in the nation, which does not surprise anyone when you look at who's on the roster there, and like you said, you're just the number of players you're adding to the mix as well is going to be huge. Now, you are having to replace basically your entire defensive line, but we just look at what's coming in and what you're going to have there. Yeah, I mean, it's talent, 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 and as we know, that is something that Jimbo Fisher has not had an issue doing there. He's not had an issue getting talent, and this is a very talented team. And so when you pair that with Sam Houston State having to replace guys who, especially like you said, a quarterback who led the team to the national title a couple seasons ago, and you look at everything else, I think that to me is a recipe for A&M, especially with that that group. I just think they're going to be able to force turnovers this season. That will be a team that does that a lot, and I feel like this is one of those games that probably jumpstarts that right from the very beginning.
No line on this game. I guess you could get it offshore somewhere. If the teams that played a year ago in College Station, according to Jeff Sagarin, A&M would have been about a 22-point favorite with the home field advantage. Don't know what the over-under would have been. I think A&M's probably better than last year. Sam Houston State probably going to take a small step back, although, again, preseason number 4, I'm guessing if you get the line somewhere it's high 20s, maybe 30 or so. But any reason A&M won't win this game? I mean, every now and then you do see some shockers with FBS teams. In fact, we saw several a year ago, but A&M, I think, is just going to have too much talent here for that to happen.
Yeah, I feel like last season probably a better opportunity for Sam Houston, you would think, given that, they probably had more experience. He still had kind of those cornerstones in place, guys that had been there. And that's again not to say that they do still have some of those guys on the roster, but I just feel like last year maybe and even then it would have been a challenge, like you said, if you kind of look at the data, what the projected spread would have been for that game. But I don't think so. I think A&M gets off to a really strong start here, and like we said, that's no knock on Sam Houston State. It's just our expectations are very high for A&M, and I think that there are some things, like we said, there are some question marks. This is a team that may be potentially without flaws. There could be some things that we still have to figure out. Like we mentioned, we don't even know who the starting quarterback is going to be yet, but I just think there's so much talent, so much potential with this group. And yeah, I feel like they're probably in a pretty good spot to roll right on here in week 1.
Yeah, again, to me, my concern, if you're looking at them, is just so many new faces in a week 1 situation where guys are excited to play. You see guys jumping off sides or committing penalties because they're young. But again, I think the talent too much to overcome, and frankly, probably not going to be a lot of mystery in this one once it gets to the second half.
I think they'll have the home field advantage too, is my guess.
I think that's the safest bet on the board. But anyway, we are previewing all the week 0 and week 1 SEC games. So we have either previewed your team already on our channel or it's to come. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. And thank you for watching.